Kicked out and cut off. My parents never thought I'd make it, but they're about to see just how wrong they were. The words still echo in my nightmares. A venomous is that severed ties and shattered dreams. Rachel, you're not good enough for this family. My father spat those words as he kicked me out, banishing me from their opulent home. To my wealthy parents, I was destined to be a disappointment, a permanent stain on their prestigious name. Little did they know, years later, our paths would cross again in the most unexpected and dramatic way. My name is Rachel Palmer, and I'm 37 years old. Just last week, I attended a professional gala where I was being honored for my work and research in education, a night I had anticipated for weeks. A celebration for everything I had painstakingly built over the years. It was supposed to be my night, a victory lap past the years of struggle and self-doubt. But then, I came face to face with someone I hadn't seen in nearly 15 years. My mother. She was standing at the sink, meticulously reapplying her lipstick, her face a carefully constructed mask. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if she'd even recognize me, the girl she had so readily dismissed. As her eyes locked onto my reflection in the mirror, her hand froze midair. "Rachel," she said, her voice cool and calculated, as if we were casually running into each other at a country club, instead of after 15 years of deafening silence. "I didn't expect to see you here," I managed to say, fighting to keep my voice even, despite the turmoil churning within me. I could say the same. Her lips pursed slightly. "What brings you here?" She turned to face me, her posture as rigid and unyielding as ever. "Your father and I were invited." "Of course," I replied, the sarcasm barely veiled. "You've always supported organizations focused on education." She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "And you?" she inquired, her tone laced with a mild, almost dismissive curiosity. "What are you doing here?" "I'm being honored tonight," I stated, holding my head high. Her expression barely shifted, revealing nothing of what she was truly thinking. "I see," she said, turning back to the mirror, as if the conversation were already over. "I suppose everyone finds their way eventually." Her words were like a punch to the gut, instantly transporting me back to the day I left that house for the last time. I was 19 years old, and the years leading up to that moment had been anything but easy. But in our family, admitting vulnerability was simply not an option. "What could you possibly be sad about?" my mother had once sneered when I tried to confide in her, her voice dripping with irritation. "You have everything, more than most kids your age. Stop making excuses." But the truth was, I was drowning. The relentless pressure to live up to the Palmer name was suffocating me. By junior year of high school, my grades were slipping. By senior year, I was barely hanging on. My parents didn't see a teenager struggling with the weight of their expectations. They saw failure, a disappointment. When I only got into a community college, my father's rage exploded. "This family has standards," he thundered, pacing the living room while I stood clutching my acceptance letter, my dreams crumbling around me. "And you've done nothing but drag us down. You want to waste your life. Fine, but you'll do it on your own." That night, I was unceremoniously kicked out of the house. I still remember the crushing weight of the duffel bag I carried as I walked away, the cold indifference that settled over me as I left my childhood home behind. My parents didn't even bother to say goodbye. My mother sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to my pain, as if I were invisible. My father's ultimatum already delivered. For the first few weeks, community college wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I worked part-time at a diner, slinging hash browns and pouring coffee to cover tuition and rent. It was a relentless grind, balancing classes with grueling shifts at the diner, all while battling the relentless voice in my head whispering that I was a failure, just as my parents had always said. But for the first time, I also felt a flicker of hope. That first year was a blur of late-night study sessions and endless cups of coffee, but it also brought something unexpected: possibility. I decided to study chemistry, partly because I genuinely loved it, and partly because I desperately wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't the worthless disappointment it had always claimed I was. It wasn't easy. My high school grades had been mediocre at best, but for the first time in years, I wasn't crushed by their expectations. I could finally focus on learning, on understanding, on growing. I still remember my first chemistry exam. I had spent weeks preparing, meticulously memorizing every reaction, every equation. When the professor handed back the graded tests, I hesitated, terrified to look, convinced that I would fail yet again. But there it was, a 92%. I nearly cried right there in the classroom. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. That small victory felt like the first step toward rebuilding myself after everything had fallen apart. Over the years, college wasn't easy, but the more I gave, the more I received. By the time I finished my associate's degree, I was a different person, someone who had learned how to fight for her place in the world, to demand respect and recognition. When I transferred to a 4-year university, the obstacles didn't simply disappear. But I knew that the shy, insecure girl who barely scraped by in high school was long gone. In her place was someone who could stand in front of a class and confidently explain complex concepts. Someone who had found her voice, how passion. Chemistry had become my life, my sanctuary, my redemption. I didn't just want to pass anymore. I wanted to excel. I wanted to prove that I wasn't the failure my parents had always believed me to be. While juggling part-time work and demanding coursework, I managed to gain hands-on experience that eventually led to a life-changing opportunity. Becoming a lead researcher at a non-profit dedicated to advancing science education wasn't just a job, it was a calling. I wanted to create a space where other kids, the ones who were told they weren't good enough, could find their way to see that the path to success wasn't always linear. Graduating with my bachelor's degree was supposed to be a triumphant moment, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. But then I realized something painful. My parents hadn't even called, not to congratulate me, not even a cursory text, nothing. My father, the owner of a massive fertilizer company, and my mother lived in a sprawling mansion, hosting extravagant parties and hobnobbing with the elite. But for all their wealth and social standing, they had never taken a genuine interest in me unless it was to criticize or belittle me. Even after I graduated with honors, after working tirelessly to get where I was, I simply didn't exist in their world. To them, I was a reminder of their perceived failure, an inconvenient blemish on their perfect lives. It stung more than I wanted to admit. I had hoped, maybe foolishly, that they would finally acknowledge my hard work, my dedication, my success. But they didn't. It was as if I had never mattered to them, as if I had never been their daughter. That realization hit harder than I expected. The only family member who came to my graduation ceremony was Aunt Lydia. Lydia was the black sheep of the family, often shunned for being too eccentric and outspoken. But she'd always been incredibly kind to me. She was the one person who remembered my birthday, even when my parents pretended I didn't exist. When I saw her in the crowd after the ceremony, my heart swelled with relief. I found her waiting in the parking lot with a huge bouquet of flowers. "You did it, kid," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you." It wasn't much, but it was enough. In that moment, Aunt Lydia reminded me that family didn't have to mean perfection, and that love could come from the unexpected places. She didn't care that I hadn't followed the prescribed path my parents had wanted for me. She cared that I had made it, against all odds. A few months after graduation, while wrapping up a research project at the university, one of my professors approached me. He was an old school chemist who spoke about the periodic table like it was poetry. He had noticed my work ethic and my unwavering dedication. "Rachel," he said, his eyes twinkling, "I've been in touch with some colleagues at Oxford University. They're offering a research opportunity in environmental chemistry." At first, I thought he was joking. Oxford, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, it seemed impossible, too good to be true. "This isn't just a job," he continued, sensing my hesitation. "It's a chance to make real contributions to the field. Don't let fear hold you back." His words resonated with me, giving me the courage to apply. I filled out the application hesitantly, not fully believing that it could actually happen. But weeks later, I received the email that would change my life forever. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded a research grant for your proposed work in environmental chemistry at Oxford University." Moving to England felt like stepping into an entirely new world, a chance to reinvent myself, to escape the suffocating weight of my past. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not my old friends. The only person who knew was Aunt Lydia. A few days before I left for England, I called her, confiding in her about my fears and my hopes. She was the only person I trusted with the truth. "You've worked too hard to let anything hold you back," she said, her voice steady and encouraging. "Do this for yourself, Rachel. You deserve it." She understood why I needed to disappear, to shed the expectations that had been hanging over me for so long. I asked her not to tell anyone where I was going. I didn't want them to find me, to drag me back into their world of judgment and indifference. So, with nothing but a backpack and a faint hope for a new beginning, I boarded a plane to England. Settling into a tiny flat in the heart of the city, I threw myself into my work. The first few weeks were a blur of adjustment, of navigating a new culture and battling feelings of loneliness and isolation. But as I immersed myself in my research, I began to feel at home, to find my footing. I was finally part of something bigger, working on projects that truly mattered. Projects with the potential to make a real impact on the world. Chemistry was no longer about proving myself to my parents or anyone else. It was about changing the future, about making a difference. Over time, I completed my master's degree, driven by a newfound confidence and a burning desire to learn. With sleepless nights and endless hours in the lab, I applied for a PhD. Years later, I am my doctorate in chemistry. The culmination of my journey felt surreal, a testament to my resilience and my unwavering dedication. Then, I was offered a position as a professor at the University of Cambridge, one of the world's most prestigious institutions. It felt like a dream I had never dared to chase, something that seemed far too removed from the girl I had once been. At Cambridge, I found a new passion in teaching and mentoring, guiding the next generation of scientists. Sharing the knowledge and resilience I had gained brought me a sense of fulfillment I hadn't anticipated. Standing at the front of a classroom, I realized how far I had come. That girl had grown into someone I was proud of, someone who had overcome incredible odds to achieve her dreams. Still, a part of me sometimes glanced over my shoulder, wondering if my parents had never thought about me, if they had ever regretted their harsh words and their cold indifference. They had never reached out, not a single call, letter, or email since I left. I told myself it didn't matter. I had built my life without them, forged my own path, found my own happiness. But when I saw my mother in that bathroom with Mia at the gala, the weight of our history came crashing back. Her dismissive words, I suppose everyone finds their way, eventually rattled in my mind. Did she really believe that? Did she even care about the years I had spent clawing my way toward the future I had dreamed of? I thought about all the times they had told me I wasn't good enough, about the cold silence when I left their house, about the years of neglect and emotional abuse. It felt like a lifetime ago, yet the pain was still raw, still present. I had worked so hard, leaving everything behind, moving to England, earning my master's and PhD, and becoming a professor at Cambridge. And here she was, treating my accomplishments like an afterthought, a minor footnote in her perfectly curated life. When she walked out of the bathroom, watching her disappear back into the crowd, I realized something profound. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need their approval. I had built a life on my own terms, and that was enough. The gala began shortly after, a hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses filling the air as I tried to shake off the weight of our encounter. This was my night, the moment I had worked so hard for, the moment I had dreamed of for so long. I took a deep breath and stepped into the ballroom, determined to enjoy the evening, to celebrate my accomplishments, to bask in the recognition that I had so richly deserved. As the host announced my name, praising my contributions to education and sustainable chemistry, the applause was deafening as I walked to the stage. The lights poured down on me, illuminating the sea of well-dressed attendees. As I stood there, the gravity of the moment hit me. This wasn't just about my work. It was a declaration to the world, and most importantly, to myself, that I had proven that I was more than the girl my parents had tried to mold and dismiss. I had become someone entirely my own, someone strong, resilient, and successful. But then, the host's voice rang out, pulling the room's attention towards him, his tone brimming with anticipation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have an exciting announcement. In recognition of tonight's honoree's groundbreaking work in education and sustainable chemistry, the host continued, a generous and anonymous donor has pledged a $2 million grant to the recipient of this award. The room fell silent, and I felt every pair of eyes shift toward me. My heart raced as the weight of the number settled over me. The sheer magnitude of the donation was surreal. This wasn't just recognition. It was a life-changing gesture of trust and belief in someone's potential. But it wasn't mine. Not officially. Not yet. This extraordinary contribution, the host continued, is intended to support the recipient's continued research efforts and to further their impact in education. The announcement wasn't directly for me. It was for the recipient of the award, whose name had yet to be revealed. Still, the atmosphere shifted, buzzing with excitement. This wasn't just an award. It was a transformation for whoever received it, a game changer, a chance to catapult their work to new heights. Then, in that moment, my father stood up abruptly, his face twisted with something that looked like disgust. His movement was swift and deliberate, betraying an internal struggle. He didn't even stay to hear my name announced. I froze, anger, disbelief, and a sharp pang of bitterness rising in my chest. This was the moment I had dreamed of. Validation for everything I had worked for, a symbol of how far I had come. And he couldn't even bring himself to remain in the room, to witness my triumph. The man who had rejected me, who had kicked me out of his house, couldn't bear to be in the same room as me at the pinnacle of my success. Watching everything unfold, the host's voice broke through my thoughts, shattering the tense silence. We are incredibly fortunate to not only have a deserving recipient for tonight's award, but also a generous donor for tonight's award, Sustainable Chemistry. He exclaimed, this $2 million grant made possible by Mosaic Fertilizers. Mosaic Fertilizers, my father's company. I felt the air leave my lungs as the realization struck me like a physical blow. The donor funding this grant, the crowning achievement of my career, was tied to the man who had spent years undermining my dreams. The man who had never believed in me. The irony was almost too much to bear. He hadn't known it would be me standing on that stage, receiving the award, basking in the applause. His contribution had been anonymous, a faceless act of philanthropy. He thought he was funding someone else, someone he could be proud of, someone who fit his narrow definition of success. Instead, it was me, the doctor he had disowned, the failure he had cast aside. My chest tightened as I tried to keep my composure, to maintain a semblance of professionalism. The applause around me was deafening, a thunderous roar of congratulations, yet it felt distant, muffled, almost surreal. I stepped forward to the microphone, my legs feeling like lead. Thank you. I managed to choke out the words, feeling empty. too small for what I was feeling. As the applause faded, I knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't accept this award, this money, knowing where it came from. I turned and walked off the stage, slipping through the crowd and out the back door, the weight of the moment crushing me. My feet moved on instinct, my heart racing, as I searched for him, needing to confront him, to understand his actions. Pushing open the door to the cool night air, I spotted him standing by his car, his back to me, his shoulders stiff with tension. My feet carried me forward before I could think twice. "Dad," I called out, my voice cracking with emotion. He didn't turn at first, feigning ignorance, but when he finally did, his expression was bitter. The same look I remember from all those years ago, the look of disappointment and disdain. "What is it now, Rachel?" he sneered, his voice laced with venom. "Are you going to thank me? Do you think I am going to congratulate you? Celebrate the fact that you're taking my money?" I stopped a few feet away, standing my ground, refusing to be intimidated. "I didn't know it came from you, and I didn't ask for it." He scoffed. "No? Well, it's yours now. Enjoy it, but it doesn't change a thing. You're still the failure I kicked out of my house." I looked him in the eye, unflinching, my voice steady and unwavering. "I don't need it. I built my life without you." For a moment, he said nothing, his face a mask of anger and resentment. Then, with a dismissive shrug, he turned and got into his car. I stood there, watching as he drove away, the sound of the engine fading into the night, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my emotions. That night, I made a decision that would ultimately define my victory. The $2 million grant wasn't my victory. It was a poisoned chalice, a tainted reward. I donated the entire amount, every last cent, to fund scholarships or underprivileged students who deserve the chance to create their own future, free from the burdens of judgment and expectation. As I pressed the final confirmation button on the donation, I felt a quiet sense of peace wash over me, a sense of liberation. My father's money didn't define me. His approval didn't validate me. My legacy would be my own, a testament to my resilience, my compassion, and my unwavering commitment to helping others. And that was worth far more than any award, any grant, any amount of money. Looking back at everything that happened, I find myself questioning my actions. Did I handle the situation correctly? Should I have accepted the grant despite its origin and used the funds for my research? Or was donating the money the right thing to do, even if it meant sacrificing a significant opportunity to advance my work? I'm eager to hear your perspectives. What do you think I should have done in this situation?